Okay, welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody, for the week of December 7th. I'm Ryan Miller, and he's Matt Amberg, and we're going quickly.
Not right now, we're not. We've definitely come to a standstill immediately.
Gee, all right, so this is Book Club for Movies. We watch one movie a week, we get together, we talk about it. You can do the same podcast at bookclubformovies.com. Recently, we're doing a bunch of wieners. That's what we call the holiday where it's horror movies and such. We did it later than October. We did it into November, but now it's December. So what does it matter anyways? Time is but a construct. What movie is that from?
Chaos is a Ladder. Who cares?
Okay. And this week, we are doing His House, and then Matt usually does a synopsis.
Alrighty, His House. Gonna come back in an hour and 33 minutes, written and directed by Remy Weeks. Apologize ahead of time. Some of these names, they're African names, and I'm probably gonna brutalize them, and I'm sorry.
What's wrong with that?
Here we go. Starring Sope Derizu, Wunmi Masaku, Malaki Wakoli Abigaba, Matt Smith, and Javier Botet. Here is your Book Club for Movies synopsis for His House. Boy, oh boy, I really am going to get letters on those. Given an opportunity to leave a brutal life in the Sudan and make a new one in a small English town, a refugee couple finds there's far more beneath the already rough veneer of their new home.
Wow, beautiful. Jeez, is that what you do on a crunch?
I do.
Very nice.
On a crunch. I was crunching.
Crunch.
I was Nestle crunching it.
I haven't had lunch yet. Hey,
Nestle lunch. Don't eat at Nestle's.
Is that a thing? I know Nestle breakfast is a thing. Is there a Nestle lunch?
Carnation instant breakfast. You can eat it at lunchtime.
Oh.
Or drink it at lunchtime.
It's as easy as that.
Easy sleazy.
Okay, and trying to go fast, this is only going to get worse.
You don't have to we just
okay.
need to not go for like an hour and a half. We got like a regular show.
So fast though.
A regular show is fine. We just
Okay. This movie, in making our way through all of the Halloweeners this time around, I feel like we took a winding road, and we've been back and forth. You'll hear all the shows if you listen to them. I suppose is how that goes. Creep Show, the first one was Haunt, and then on to some later ones like Color Out of Space, and then, of course, who could forget?
The Conjuring.
The Conjuring. It was doing so good.
Who can forget
the most recent one?
But me can forget the least most forgettable.
And essentially, I guess especially if you heard the last week's show on The Conjuring, which technically Color Out of Space was also last week's show since they came out the same way.
Yeah, so pick and choose.
We talked about how, like, what kind of horror movies each of us prefer to some extent, even though I feel like I hope we're being fair to all types of horror movies in this. I try to be.
Well, we haven't really touched in on any of the psychosexual ones, which I feel like is a
okay,
major
you're right.
miss.
I don't
for
try
us.
to be completely fair.
Yeah, no, you are very unfair, I would say. But let's go ahead and continue on with the charade.
I do have a type, let's say.
Yeah, you do.
But this week, I feel like we took a winding road and may have really got to my stuff. And neither of us had seen this before, and this is also one of those rare instances where we do a very, very new film. This came out this season, so probably in October, I would imagine. Yeah, that's a good question. To Netflix, even though I guess it's been sitting on a shelf of sorts since January or since COVID hit, but I guess Netflix bought the thing before it premiered at Sundance, but then the whole shutdown happened anyways, so we got it in October, and we watched it in December, and we're speaking about it mere minutes after. And
amazing.
On a time crunch, because funnily enough, you have to give blood. Is that correct?
I don't have to give blood. I have to have blood taken because I have many issues.
Even more appropriate.
Yes, I have doctor's appointments this week. My cardiology appointment. I'm finding out, hopefully, if I'm dying any more than I already know I am, and real excited.
So yes, we've done several horror movies on the road to Matt's heart issues. What could they be? Stay tuned. But before he has blood taken from him, we want to try and talk about
blood taken from others.
I guess, yes. Spoiler, we're getting there quick. If we want to start with the ending and move backwards, we don't. But there is blood involved, let's say.
Small amounts.
But since this movie is so new, there's not much to talk about, and in so many different ways. The director, because there wasn't so much to go on, I started looking him up to be like, okay, well, where does he come from? And it turns out there's not much to go on, because and we do all sorts of movies, so we have done some that have been kind of first outings of some directors in one way or the other.
Haunt was the first outing for writer and directors. Right? Yeah. They wrote it, directed it, filmed it, did it, and then they did A Quiet Place.
Oh, right. That's okay. I do. This is ringing a bell. It was the first one. It's been so long.
Yeah, I know. It's been weeks.
So maybe because I had something like A Quiet Place to also look at and to talk about, there was something we could do. But Remy Weeks, this guy, seriously, not only professionally young, let's say, he's also, and I straight up Googled this after, because I was done a little bit early, so I've just been watching videos up until we started doing this. Looks like he could be in his 20s, easy. And the older, I don't know if this happens to you, the older I get, the less of a handle I have on any of that. Like 14-year-olds up to 20-something.
No idea.
Same.
Which is why, for me, I actually straight up don't even look at humans anymore and be like, oh, they could be attractive, because I don't know. I'm like, nah. Every person is now an uggo and just a blank blob.
This is a viable solution, and I support it.
I can't deal with it anymore.
But Remy Weeks is one of those people. It turns out he's 33. So regardless, young professionally, young in real life. So
young in spirit.
There isn't a ton to speak about besides that being, to me, a phenomenal debut.
Sure.
With this movie, because it deals with so many things that, and when I say this is my type of thing, we talked about horror movies that say something, do something, that have a lot under the surface.
Yeah.
And this movie deals with so many things that I was almost certain it came from experience. And Remy Weeks is African, not American, I almost said, because he's British. This movie takes place in Britain.
It does.
But so he did have that experience of, because he says this movie is mostly about assimilation. It is outwardly about a pair of refugees, but he's not a refugee himself, I guess is what I was saying. And while watching this, I would have said this seems like it was made by a refugee himself.
Yeah, is he actually Sudanese, or is he?
Nope.
Do you know where he's from? Do you remember what part of?
I don't know where his I don't know where his ancestry, but dude seems British, like straight up. Okay, I don't even.
Sure.
Again, go to IMDb. His bio isn't even really. There's nothing.
Oh, there's
there.
No bio. Yeah, there's nothing there. Yeah. It's he directed this movie. Guess what?
It's enough, though. It's the crazy thing. So Remy Weeks, writer director of this thing, says essentially the genesis came when, and he had this idea, but he did do a fair amount of research himself outside of whatever he was communicating experientially, and I guess the real genesis came from when he did look up this refugee process and how a lot of times refugees are assigned a house. But they're also given all sorts of rules, like don't leave, essentially, which I think probably means like we need to be able to find you.
Right.
But still, he says a lot of times manifests in his words, people being stuck at home alone with their demons after already having gone through an ordeal to get there in the first place.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
And this family specifically comes from South Sudan, where they escaped by the skin of their teeth. We do see fairly early on. In fact, I want to say the movie opens on that, right?
Yeah, it opens with the mother holding the daughter and saying, "I'll protect you," and they're getting ready. They're on the back of the truck, and then the next sequence is them in the boat, and then we kind of get the flash of the water, and then that takes us right to the detention. It's not even a quote unquote. It's a detention center. They call it a detention center.
Not quite a cage, but again, we're in Britain, I guess. So that was a dig on America.
It's a good one too.
I just want to make sure. But we're treated with a ton of. I got to tell you, I fell in love with this movie, with this filmmaking, very early on, because we're treated with a bunch of close-ups, a bunch of tactile interactions between husband and wife, and in the way that, you know, she's buttoning up his shirt or he's asleep. Another, I guess, there's lots of dream things that we'll talk about, but he's asleep on her lap while she's kind of, you know, just really, really well done. Not an ounce of music, which I love music and music in movies, but the absence of which can be, to me, sometimes I feel like more impactful. Obviously, I think we've talked about that.
I think in this case, it does have a pretty decent impact, mostly because of the kind of position that they're put in, right? Like, you have refugees who do have, we find out pretty early on, they have a cell phone. It only shows up one time at the very beginning. It's like never used again.
Yeah, I don't remember it even.
And it's right at the beginning when they get to the house, and I actually think they play music on it for just the one sequence.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay. I do. But
remember. It's like the only time you hear music that I remember from the movie.
And that comes from the movie. It's not like a score or anything.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And it does serve to still punctuate the moment. Like, it's a beautiful moment, because they are given this hovel, really, to stay in. You know, they open up the pizza box, it's still there with pizza in it, and it's covered in bugs, because who knows what. The front yard's full of trash. There's holes in the wall already, even though there will be more. And they're in love still with the place to some extent, him possibly more so, and that is also a hint of things to come. But they're home. It's their house.
Indeed.
His house.
Well,
I could have said the title of the film.
And I couldn't believe that. At no point did they say the title of the movie in the movie, and I was so bummed out.
I think, he says my house?
He says,
right?
It's my house, and I was like,
house.
is it? I was hoping it'd be like,
yeah, keep going. What kind of house is it? If you were right,
yeah,
or the wife comes in at that point. Is it? She would have to look at the camera, I guess, to be like, is it his house? Is that what he's saying?
Winky.
Oh, so
this movie would have just been so much better.
So I don't know. So did you fall in love with the filmmaking as quickly as I did, or was that kind of?
I won't go so far as to say I fell in love with the filmmaking. I thought there were some striking visuals. I did like a good deal of the choicing the choices that were made, cinematography wise. I think there were some really, really beautiful shots. In particular, there were a couple that were so effective early on with shadow work, and the way he filmed like candles being lit, but the lighting, and it was actually that there's a moment where Bol, who's the husband, Bol and Rial are the husband and wife. He's pulling this wire out of the wall, and it just keeps coming, and it slowly turns into rope, which is very clearly covered in sea life and
seaweed,
water and seaweed. And there's a shot where it's kind of from behind him almost, and there's a shadow, and his shadow, it's like the shadow is pulling him while it's pulling, and it's just a really beautiful shot.
The night shots from within the house are fantastic. Yeah.
Great, yeah.
Many that I thought must be frustrating because of how long they probably took to set up, and about how little appreciation they probably get from, those type of shots where you're like, I don't think you understand what you're looking at, and that you can look at it.
Right.
Because of what they've done. Yeah.
No, there is some really impressive stuff in here. And you mentioned it, there is a ton of stuff that's shot in the dark. This is a movie that will benefit from watching in the dark. But it's
also, yeah.
I don't know that I go so far as to say I fell in love with the filmmaking, but I did like a lot of the choices.
Sure, and I'll say when I say that, I'm speaking very early on, where we do have all these kind of close-ups on tactile actions that really do kind of attach to emotions in a way, which is sure it might be filmmaking 101, right? That's you're showing and not telling in the perfect way, but I will say that that's not carried on. It's not as in your face throughout the rest of the film. It was just a very good intro to me.
Sure. And but I would also say that again, you mentioned filmmaking 101 here. It's something that is how often
Oh yeah.
How often not done, how often glossed over, how often ignored by directors that you love. Like there are directors out there that you absolutely adore. And if you think about some of the filmmaking 101 stuff that really can make impact, you might see, oh, I love that director, I love that movie. But if you watch it critically, you go, well, I mean, from a filmmaking perspective, maybe that's not the best. It's the story that drives it, or the actor that does it, or the actress, or whatever. But then you think about the actual filmmaking and the choices behind the tactile, the cinematography, and you go, well, those could have been, maybe a little bit better. Or
right.
So I think that's a good. I think you've got a good example here of that.
He just seems so adept from the get at communicating things without words, without music. Like the couple and their trip, even though they come from just this war-torn, like they don't come from a good place. This is a movie about home in some ways. It's a movie about a lot of things, but their home is not a good situation. Right. It's war-torn. They really do escape bullets flying. And they come to this new place where that's maybe less subtle, the kind of disdain that they're treated with throughout the whole process. There's no cages, but there's very condescending, it seems, bureaucrats that kind of tell them. The main in the story, in fact, played by Matt Smith.
Yeah, you mean Doctor Who?
Oh, really? Is it? Okay.
Yeah, he's a beloved Doctor Who.
Is he a beloved Doctor Who? He's not a...
He was the one that came after Christopher Eccleston did his like one shot thing.
And I've heard that name before, and I also know this is the extent of my Doctor Who knowledge. We're going to exhaust it all in one go.
Yeah, I'm not a big Doctor Who fan.
Oh, I've forgotten his name already. The Scottish dude.
Peter Capaldi.
Yes, there we go. And that was already flying out of my ear.
Christopher Eccleston, you best remember as the guy who really, 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 really hated being in all the makeup and did not enjoy one moment of filming Thor: The Dark World as Malekith.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is exactly what I knew him from. That is it. You've again exhausted now all of my Thor knowledge. No, I'm just kidding. But yes, Matt Smith being the premier bureaucrat here and uses such familiar terms as be one of the good ones and, stuff like that.
Sure.
And I think there is another, it is kind of overtly about that in a way, but there aren't a ton of in-your-face interactions beyond that first little bit with all the bureaucrats and getting their house. There's one other with Rial as she becomes lost in the new neighborhood and confronts some other. So they're not British Americans. Is that?
They'd be British.
African
British.
There's no America in it. I know. Okay.
Black kids that are English. Let's go with that.
And they in turn tell her to go back to Africa. So there are those interactions, but I think we just said them all, actually.
Yeah, they're the only other interaction we get that's actually that has any real meaning to it is there is a moment towards the end that I actually felt was, I feel like this might be an editing thing that there's an old lady who lives like next to them or above them.
Forgot about her.
And she never says anything. She kind of never, like, he waves to her, they smile at her, she doesn't do anything, and then she finally says, "You guys should just leave."
Yeah, if you're having such a hard time, because she can tell they're having a hard time.
Right. they're gonna kick you out in a week. And then as soon as she says that, Matt Smith and the one other guy shows up, and they kind of it's right. He runs out after seeing here comes spoilers, a ghost. And she's like, yeah, you should leave. And perfect typecasting, by the way, of that woman. Unfortunately, for her maybe, but no, she looked like a specter herself. So something, did a great job. Something I want to quickly touch on, because you did, like, you kind of mentioned it when we were talking about the filmmaking here. I think something that really comes across in this movie overall is there is a serious confidence in all of the shots, in all of the filmmaking here. Oh yeah. There is no timid choices in this film in terms of the editing, in terms of any of that. I think this was a really well envisioned film that he like Remy Weeks knew what he wanted to do and went in with a purpose and and he had that, and he nailed it, like, in that respect. There's confidence is the best word I can use for the filmmaking here. It's confident filmmaking.
I agree 100%. And I think probably that's what was coming across to me. Also, controversial opinion, and I think slightly insulting, and I'm sorry that it's coming to my mind, but I think he might have lucked out in some ways, because especially since, and I don't discount, I watched a lot of interviews with him and he seems super cool. Like, I would love to meet this guy and know him in any way.
Sure.
But he does seem very young. And while he was, I think, relying on his own experiences, like, incredibly smartly, I think by doing so, he tapped into a way to say things. And again, by also not overtly saying them, he tapped into this way of touching on so many things and working on so many levels, just because he stuck to his experiences and this communication of feeling in a way that he didn't need to know, like, the hundreds of years of psychology that have followed such things. Sure. Or even involved in such things. And he did say he studied and researched, so I don't really want to, put any of that past him, but he is so young and so confident. Like, it's nuts to me. I feel like he must have, again, so insultingly, lucked out just a little bit, maybe, I don't know, with what he did here.
I think it's hard to say. Yeah, I mean, movies like this don't come along very often, like, that are this strong right out the gate. They just don't. Like, how many, again, go back and look at your favorite directors and look at their first couple of films. Look at where, and not even that, look at where they came from. Look at what they started doing. Remy Weeks started as a film editor. So the editing here, of course, it makes sense that the editing is spot on. He knows how to edit. That's what he did. But go back and look at some of the early movies. It's really rare that you're going to be, you're going to have a Scorsese and you're going to come out with Mean Streets and just knock it out of the park, right? That doesn't happen more than, a handful of times. And of course, Hollywood's goal is to always out. They want every director, they want every moment to be that, but that's not the case. And I think, when you have, this guy clearly has the lightning in a bottle moment where the idea came, the research hit, he knew what he was doing, like, all of that comes together, and there's luck to it. Like, but there's also, as you mentioned, there's hard work that goes behind it too. So I have a hard time discounting the concept of luck in any case when it comes to anything being successful in Hollywood.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of it too. It's, you know what? Okay. Deep cut, really stupid poll even here.
Ooh.
I wrote a report in film school, and it wasn't in a film class, it was in a forensics class. But I was, like, forensics, I think, might have been one of my, whatever you call those classes that you have to take so you don't just take film classes. Whatever.
A requirement?
I don't know. And
you have electives and you have requirements. I don't know what the other word for requirement.
Who knows? I ended up writing my final paper on the movie 12 Angry Men, because in that film, like, literally we spent the entire year, forensics being the study of law and psychology, by the way. We spent the entire year speaking about all these different psychological phenomena that occur in the law space, whatever the real academic word for that is. And the movie 12 Angry Men, I don't think Sidney Lumet knew all of that, right?
Sure.
He just knew people.
Right.
So I ended up writing this paper about how, and again, this makes no sense. This made more sense as a paper for film than it did for forensics. But I also gave him a pirated copy of the movie, so I think I got an A.
Nice.
And he totally asked me to. He's like, "Where'd you get this?" I was like, "The library." So I think what happens here is essentially the same thing. Like, Remy Weeks, smartly enough, pulled from his own life experience and did definitely enough research, but spoke to things that maybe he doesn't have a full understanding of, because he was a smart enough and confident enough filmmaker in other avenues. And this is the other way I will say he lucked out. And I have no problem saying this because it's less insulting to him, and he'd probably agree. those two actors, Sope Dirisu and Wunmi Mosaku, I'm sure I also butchered those, are phenomenal. Tell me,
So
did you have
great.
any problems with
Not
them?
even a little bit. Both of them, I really, really like them. Right off the bat, there was. I can easily see both of those actors being huge stars in the future, making great movies.
Also, very early on in their careers too. Like Wunmi was in Batman versus Superman somewhere. That was the largest credit I saw. I don't remember her from that film, but Sope, I don't know from anywhere. I don't think I knew any of his other. You go to IMDb and it's like known for. Oh, okay. He's known for Gangs of London. I don't know how prominently he's featured in there, and I've only heard of that because I believe Gareth Edwards is involved. He did Raid Redemption. Apparently, it's a very good series for action. So I don't know.
Oh yeah, The Raid is.
No, The Raid. Yes, I know, but no, Gangs of London. I guess is where he went, and one of his primary goals was to create an episodic that had legitimate action in it. So
sure.
I don't know. I've never watched. Have you ever seen Gangs of London?
No.
Okay. Gareth Evans, maybe might be the word I'm looking for.
Gareth.
Apologies to everybody.
Yeah.
We're not, no names are getting right this time around.
Myron, you're doing fine.
So yeah, I absolutely lucked out with those, not with those performances because they show their craft, but with those picks, maybe that chemistry. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean,
they make that movie.
Whoever decided to bring them in for casting, however they were cast, like fantastic, good choices.
Did a great job.
Yeah. So let's talk about the story here. Let's talk about what this movie actually is about. So we've gotten to the point where it starts off with a husband and wife and their daughter, or at least on a boat with a number of other refugees, and we're given right away that some of the refugees didn't make it. They drown in the water. We know that. Right away, and this is something else that you mentioned that they touched on. They're brought out of their cell and put in this large room with 3 bureaucrats that tell them, you guys are going to be released from the detention center today, but with restrictions. We're going to give you a house. We're going to give you a small amount of money. And here are the things you can't do. You can't go anywhere. You can't get a job. You can't
do anything.
They literally are told they can't leave. But it doesn't mean they can't leave the house. It just means they can't leave the area. They need to live there. They can't move from the house. They can't get a job. They can't take money from people or have any other way, form of subsidizing income. So it's
all done in this oppressive way where, because they are supposed to show they are good citizens or can be good citizens, which it does seem ridiculous for refugees, especially
And the moment here is, I think, more pointed in that they're not even being treated like humans in this sequence. They're being talked at, and on top of being talked at, they are set so far away from the people at the table that the camera itself can't back up far enough to get them all in the shot. It has to go back and forth, or be like a 2 shot where it's behind the actors to look forward. You can't get a horizontal, like a widescreen shot. It just and purposefully he's making that room significantly bigger than it probably actually is.
There is a gulf, a chasm, and they are ghosts.
No,
I'm moving quickly.
Movie over. But there is, and that's actually perfect. It is. There's a chasm between them and between these refugees and these bureaucrats, and to the point where Bull actually says, for the first time, the first words he says to these people is, "We're good people," and the guy just looks at him and says, "You may be good people, but I'm not the person you have to convince." To them, it is, they're not dealing with humans, they're dealing with paper. And that's all they care about is stamp the paper, move on, stamp the paper, move on. And it's effective. You immediately understand what's about to happen. And then they're driven to a place where they ask the driver, "Where are we going?" They don't tell him. They don't say anything to either of them. Then they're let out in front of what is essentially my assumption being it's the projects. It's the English version of the projects.
Sure.
And like we've already talked about, the house is run down. There's holes in it. There's junk in the front yard. There's pizzas like that. There's food places that have bugs everywhere. And the minute Matt Smith gives them like a basket that has some essentials in it, Bull goes upstairs. And this is the other thing. Consistently throughout this movie, they keep telling them, you guys are so lucky you're getting the biggest house. Your house is bigger than our house. It's bigger than my house. Matt Smith says that. The people in the office say that. Everybody points out this house. You guys should be so happy.
Right.
It's so much bigger than everybody else's.
And that comes when later on he goes back to get a different house because it does appear to be haunted.
Right. But the moment they get in the house, they look around and everything, that they try to flip on the lights flicker and go out right away. The door comes off the hinge. But Bull goes upstairs and starts crying because he is so happy to be gone.
That's the read I got too.
He is so happy to be out of Sudan, and now he is in a place that is his house. It's like he recognizes this as, I'm home in a different way. Like, whereas
well, he's completely, not to move on from that because I think this is going to become the main conflict of the film. He is completely bought into the dream. Like, he's made it. He's going to assimilate. He doesn't care what it takes. And I think we can get spoilery
for sure.
This point too, because he's also done whatever it takes to get this far. We see shots of them with their daughter. We don't see her when they arrive, so we assume she did drown. What we are given piecemeal throughout, because there are hallucinations of sorts and dreams and stuff like that. What we are given later, this is the reveal, is that they, upon trying to board a bus to get out of immediate danger, guns going off, trucks coming down the road, the people on the bus say, no, kids only. So he literally grabs a random kid and was like, we have a kid. And they take her on the bus, and that's how they get passage out of the city.
So so here's the other thing for me is it wasn't until the very end, that, because that scene threw me off, because she was already on the bus. The Rial was already on the bus. I didn't think they even knew each other.
Oh.
Like, he gets on the bus with the little girl, but she's sitting there across from him looking. But then we get another flashback where he and her are on, like, he saves her from the school.
Yes, which they
lay down on top of the building while the
so they were definitely together before.
So they were
kid.
I think she was on the bus and he wasn't. And he was desperate to get on the bus with her, and so he steals the child. And then we see the little girl screaming for her mother, who's now chasing the bus, and he's telling her, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. And Rial eventually tells her, I'll protect you. And we find out later on that Rial probably loved that kid because she thought she was pregnant and they lost the baby. And that's my consistent read for the movie now, is that when she keeps saying, you forgot about your daughter, she's not talking about the little girl that drowned. She's talking about the baby she had that she lost.
Yeah, okay.
Because if you remember, she goes to the school, like she's we're going to move a little quick here.
But in fact, that's why we were getting there, is because
we get to a point where he refuses to acknowledge that there are ghosts, even though he's the first one to see them. She accepts it and is talking to them. And we find out, she tells a story about a witch that her mother told her, and the witch,
Apeth, I believe is the...
Thank you. The witch basically wants something in return and can bring the daughter back. And while the young girl is who we're consistently driven to, that is the person, and at the end does show up, how do you say it? Like as the gift for how like
this movie is so, like, none of this is on the surface. Again, we are piecemeal given these plot points that we've just spelled out for you in a nice neat line, but they are not revealed even themselves. Okay, there are two things to them. they're revealed piecemeal and out of order. So you kind of do have to. It's not so complicated, you know. It's not like David Lynch or anything. Like you can reassemble them.
This
just
isn't
okay.
Twin Peaks, okay?
Right? Yeah. But also they're intermixed with these kind of dream sequences, and
right.
You never quite know if they actually happen, especially as time goes on. They become waking dream sequences in a way. Like at one point, Rial comes up on, and they happen at the perfect moments in the film. Like the escalation is really perfect. The pacing is really perfect in this movie.
It is.
But at one point, the dream is a waking kind of catatonia for Bull as he's just kind of sitting in his couch. And this is him. Yeah.
He specifically at that point says, "You're going to talk to me now," because the ghost and the witch have only been talking to Rial. And so now he sits down, lights a candle, and says, "You're going to talk to me," and gets the explanation and understands what is needed, what's required, which is the witch continues to try. This is like throughout the film, tries to get him to use a knife that to hurt him, to cut himself,
so open that his flesh, I think.
Yeah. So that my assumption immediately was the witch's goal is to basically take over the body. And pull him into whatever underworld thing, ghost world.
At the very least, really get under his skin.
We'll get
watch the
and in doing so as he's sitting there, he realizes that the ghost can't touch him until he is hurt. And with this particular knife, it seems like it's got to be this particular thing, because he does cut himself earlier in the movie and nothing happens.
But it's just a kitchen knife. Like I don't know if I assign any real importance.
But
to
I
the
think,
knife,
but I think there's a couple. Well, really?
Okay, go ahead. No, yeah.
So a huge part of
it won't be the first time you've proved me wrong.
So the
Let's
kitchen.
go.
Okay, so the kitchen knife I think is actually pretty integral here, because they make a point of Bull trying to assimilate, and one of the things that he continues throughout the movie to get Rial to use is silverware. And she does not want to. She doesn't like using it. And then
you've done it, haven't you?
You've gone the knife. That's the ultimate piece of like it's silverware.
The knife is the ultimate piece of silverware, regardless of how you've just proven me wrong. That's a good line.
Yeah,
that's true. It's the truth, an eternal truth.
But so I think that knife, that the kitchen knife is particular for that reason.
Yeah.
And he realizes, well, I can't be touched because there's a fire and there's water and all this stuff. And it's all just in my mind. It's pictures until it's not, right. And he loses it. And in doing so, he goes to the nth degree by having Rial saying, "I'm going to leave. I want to go back because I want my daughter back. I want my life back." And he destroys all the locks. He takes off all the door handles. He breaks the hinges on the windows. He does everything he can to keep her there. She finally figures out, she gets out, and in getting out, we get another flashback. And that's where the whole baby and like her baby comes into play for me, because she sits down and one of the women in the school that we later find out were all slaughtered, touches her stomach and says, "There's no baby here. You don't, there is, it's not a girl." It's like she says, it's not a girl.
Yeah, it's literally Darcy Corden.
Yeah, I am not a woman.
Good place cut.
And that there's that moment where she's then again provided the knife. She goes back. She wakes back up.
The witch comes to her too and is like, basically the witch wants its pound of flesh, whatever.
Right.
And
because the witch is like, the whole thing here is that he killed her by letting her drown, and that all of the ghosts that are showing up in the house are all refugees or people that were shot that he knew or had seen, and the one that matters is the one the ghost will give back. He'll bring her back to Rial as long as he gets hurt. He's the one that has to die, and doesn't even have to die. He just has to open his flesh.
Whatever. Yeah.
And we're given this amazing moment at the end where she is sat down and he's sitting next to her, and the blade shakes on the table and she sees it on the counter, and she looks at it. She gets up and she walks past it and gets a glass of water, and you're kind of thinking, okay, she's prepping herself to do this. And then he cuts himself. And in doing so, brings the ghost. We finally see the witch, which
brings the ghost, but that's an important moment for him because he's been an abuser up until that point. Like he's gone off the deep end. He did lock her inside. He
verbally abusing
never
her
has
completely.
been like he gets physical with her. Like he gets very close up to her. He will shut his mouth. Like he doesn't punch her or anything. And I'm not making excuses, but they really go right up to the line.
It's abuse. Yeah.
Or yeah, over the line, actually. Yes. He becomes the abuser. Like, and she, to get out, actually physically stabs him with a screwdriver or something.
Yeah.
To get out. So yeah, it's gone over the line. So at that moment when he takes the knife and cuts him, like, your mileage will vary with this moment because I believe he is meant to be redeemed, might be a bad word in that sense, but that is his coming back in the film. Like he's no longer the bad guy from then on out.
Right.
Maybe it's not so finite, but I guess if you have issues with abuse and abusers, that I could see that not being satisfactory in a way.
Sure.
So,
but he does we get our first real clear view of the witch, and I love the makeup work. The makeup, fantastic. That's
got to be practical, right? I didn't see.
Oh yeah, that looked very practical.
They went digital for some of the backgrounds and some of the dream sequences. I want to say none of the monsters themselves, besides maybe some touch up, seemed digital to me at all.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay.
We get the moment where the and this is another fantastic use of really good camera placement, keeping something that is pretty awful and kind of gory without the gore. Like it's got gore, but it's not, we're not talking guts here, but the monster, the witch starts sticking his hand into the wound and starts like climbing into the skin.
Right at that hand.
And it is the way they shoot it is actually really brilliant because it's not quite we're going to leave it all to your imagination, but it's not quite we're going to show you everything either.
It's certainly the showist part of the entire film. And actually I was a little bummed because I got my wife to watch it with me, and I never seen it, didn't know how far it was going to go, but I knew it was, the thing is only, I think it's like
hour?
TV 14 or something like that.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, it's very short. Sure. But I, she's not so much into the scare. I'm trying to, because it's fun to be scared. Like, bottom line, at the very least, it's fun when you let go. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but this is part of why I try to get, part of what I hope we do with the Wieners this season, every season, is that it's fun to be scared. And I was excited because I got her to a movie that I thought would legitimately, get under her skin again a little bit. And we ran out of time, so I ended up watching the last half without her, so she didn't get any of that. So,
you got to show it to her. I hope.
I'm gonna tell her to go back. We'll see what happens.
This is one I'm gonna have Beth watch because she didn't get to watch it with me.
Didn't watch it with you either. No. Okay, well, we'll do a follow up show where our wives watched the movie.
We'll have them do the show. They could do the entire book club show. That would be
I would
great.
Let's
pay money for that. Actually, like I
would it go. Our wives have never met, right? Am I?
No, I don't think they've ever even spoken.
Okay, yeah. No. This has become a new goal.
I don't know that they've ever seen each other.
That might be true also.
So anyway, so we get this moment where the demon comes back and he does, Rial kind of turns away and she doesn't watch any of it. She can hear it. And the little girl's hand comes up into her hand. And it's that moment where she realizes that this is not right either. This is wrong. For all that I wanted and for all that I would give up to have her back, she's gone. And it's only going to be worse if he's gone too. And I think she comes to some conclusions for herself, turns around, and I honestly, I was like, when she, when it happens, you go, oh, okay, obviously. But I was like, what? She turns around and she cuts the demon's throat. Like she just starts sawing that thing. And again, you don't see a ton of it. You see more blood splatter.
No, I don't think you see you
see blood splatter on Bull. That's really it. And then we are given the kind of wrap up where they've cleaned up the house now. It's fixed. Matt Smith and his lackeys show up to validate that the house is being taken care of or fixed up again.
Do their inspection or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And they make the claim again, we're home.
I think they make the claim for their first time together at least.
Together. Yeah. She actually, it's her first time. She says, this is our home. This is our house. And then she says, I think we're going to paint the room red.
I laughed out loud at that one.
Totally loud. Yeah. I absolutely had a giggle. And then we get this this ending that I truly loved, where they did kind of try to pass off the information to Matt Smith that there's a ghost here, there's a witch here.
It's in that moment where he asks for a new house, and of course they all look at him and say, you should be thankful for what you got, and think he's crazy with whatever. Yeah.
And so he does the callback and says, so what happened with the witch? And Bull says she killed him.
Which I love. I love they don't shy away from it.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's just that, and then but it's the moment where he explains, and I truly don't even want to try to explain what he says, because it's a visual. To me, that was a good visual punch with the explanation, and the how he gets surrounded, and the little girl again, and all of that, the ghosts, and real strong ending. Really, really strong ending to me.
I will say exactly what he said, but I want to go back a little bit, because again, I feel like there's so much we're glossing over, because this thing does do so much.
Definitely.
But I want to at the very least point out that there's a moment where, again, it's kind of where they're right in the middle of their conflict. He's perfectly fine with assimilation and doing everything he can, and she's very much concerned with what he's losing in the process, what she's lost, what they've been through. And she does keep referring to going back. She's like, no, we need to go back. And again, keep in mind, they came from an objectively bad situation.
Right.
It shouldn't take much to figure out that's not what she's talking about. So what is she talking about? And in that conversation, she says to him, because he's trying to convince her in one of those moments, and she says, you think it's bumps in the night that scare me? After everything I've seen, essentially. And it's a perfect indictment of not just him, but of everybody.
Well,
she
straight up says, after seeing what men can do, she flat out says that's like that's the part of the quote is, I've seen what men can do.
But in that moment where it could have been indicting us, you think this movie is scary? Like, you tune in for your little horror movie and you think this is what freaks me out at night, if this movie is about, and Remy Weeks says it is, assimilation and refugees and all that, that's at the heart of it, right? That says something. Sure. That is amazing to me. I'm happy to be in that moment and to have that moment at the very least. And the fact that the other thing I want to get to is that the rest of the movie is kind of in and out of dreams, of course, makes me think of Nightmare on Elm Street, but also in the way that the line between reality is blurred.
Yeah.
It's funny to me that Remy never mentions Nightmare. And maybe that's on purpose, since it is so direct, that's, hey, I'm not subtle. But there's that moment at the end where he is Matt Smith is looking throughout the house to be like, okay, because some of the walls have been patched at that point, and there's a carpet laying over the hole in the kitchen floor,
right,
where the witch came out.
Yeah.
It happened.
Yeah.
So there's this, and it's been a while since I've seen Nightmare 1, but there's this aspect to, okay, what is actually happening? What can actually hurt you?
Well, I mean, sure, that the immediate thing that always gets me in Nightmare, that would be almost a direct correlation here, is the Johnny Depp death, right? So the first death, Tina, she's slashed and tossed around the room, and they basically say it was blood spatter. But Johnny Depp is sucked into his bed, and it turns into a blood fountain. They can't explain it. There's no explanation for it, and there never truly is. There's just a lot of blood, and he's dead.
And what? This is still a very different movie, but I think...
But it's the same thing.
Remy Weeks does what he very himself smartly puts into words as making the abstract tangible.
Yeah.
And then it does all lead to that part at the end where Bull does say, and I'll give you the straight up quote because I did write it down.
It's when I let the ghosts in that I truly understood, something like that.
And he's talking about his demons, right? You know, those demons that he's had to sit with now in this house, so to speak. And he says, and okay, you know, the simple phrase is that they're haunted by their past. Sure. It's portrayed beautifully here, and I love it, and that doesn't do it justice. But in a sense, what he says in his own words at the end is, it's when I let them in, I could start to face myself. And he's saying this to Matt Smith. And then the rest of the sentence is picked up by Rial, which I think is another beautiful touch because they are one at this point. And she says, "This is our home. We're happy here."
Yeah.
And Remy Weeks says this too. He is very cognizant of the fact that he wanted recovery to happen. He didn't want it to happen quickly, but he wanted the movie to end at the beginning of that.
Yeah.
And I think he did it.
Yeah, I think
he did everything.
I think he nailed the ending on this, and is nailed totally.
Yeah. And then we get that final shot too of the room. And it's strange to me because I feel like people didn't pick up on this. So maybe you tell me if I'm looking into this, but there's another dreamish type sequence of them in a room full of all their peers. It starts out with just them looking at the other room, and it's got their not daughter that drowned in there, looking back at them, and then it switches back to them, and the room is full of them and their peers, and then it switches back to the other room, which I think is full of children. It
wasn't just children, but it was. I know because I think her actual mother might have actually been in there, but there were adults in there. It was just, you have to remember that the amount of refugees that have come through and people they know that were shot, like, I mean, you get there again. There's an entire sequence where we see the inside of the school, and all of these women were butchered. They were all murdered.
I bet that's who it was, actually. I bet it was all the women from the school in that room, at the very least.
Which would make sense because, I mean, they're all in the same area, getting on the same bus. They were probably all somewhat relatively, you know, I mean, I don't know. But it was definitely, there were more than just kids in there. But there were kids in there.
Okay, all right. Yeah, and maybe that would be too simplistic, the whole kids is the future thing. I don't know. At the very least, you know, they were looking back at the people who died along the way or continue to die, I'm sure. So tell me if you think Remy succeeded in what he said. I talked about how, you know, I was sure this came from some sort of experiential, like that he was drawing from experience here. And he was certainly, and this is what he says. He says, growing up in London as a person of color. Oh, there you go. He grew up in London. A conversation we had in our community was of assimilation. How much of yourself do you give up or let go to give in? That's the crux of the story. Do you think that's the crux of this story?
Yeah, no, I think he nails that. I mean, truly, it's and I think I think that's actually really, really solidified at the end with Rial's statements with because she is the one she's been so resistant to any kind of assimilation because she wanted to keep, like, again, it's the silverware thing, right? She doesn't want to use silverware.
Yeah, all I taste is metal.
You'll get used to it. You know, it's little things that I'm going to paint the room red. You know, like that's a kind of dark humorish thing, but it's I think he does hit that. And what's interesting again to me is that, like, this is a story I can't understand or really know.
Right, yeah.
But him saying this is what the story is, my interpretation of it before hearing that, I'm glad they dovetail. I'm glad that I was able to pick up on what he wanted to get across. And that's, I mean, I think
all credit to him.
I think that I was going to say, I think that's a sign of really good filmmaking. You know, it was not, I don't think that message is really muddled. I don't. I think it's very clear. And I think, I think he nails it. I think that ending sticks to landing.
I think he pulled it off beginning to end. And I agree that I think she was the key because she is the one that doesn't, it's not that she isn't having a journey herself, but she certainly doesn't give in as quickly as he does, and not in the same way. Like, she keeps talking about going back to home, and once you figure out what she's referring to, it's what you do take with you. Like, he is renouncing his entire culture.
It's literally the home is where the heart is thing, right?
Sure.
I mean, it's stupid, but that's kind of it. It's but home is like, where you
that
make
is the amazingly simplistic. Yeah, but because it is so much like, home is where the culture is, maybe, but would get a little bit more nuance to it. But
right, but we're
yes.
not nuanced.
No, we're not. So home is where the heart is. Everybody, if you're gonna watch His House, so go. Is that on the poster somewhere? It should be.
Home is where the heart is.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Really gets under your skin. These lines and more can be found at. They can't be found. You can email them back to us at podcast@bookclubformovies.com. We're done with the wieners. That's it. The last wiener. I hope you enjoyed all the wieners. Please write us in and tell us how much you like wieners. Matt.
Yeah.
What are we going to do next week? Are we going to do something next week?
Yeah. We're definitely going to do something next week. Next week, so here's kind of the issue. All right.
Okay.
I got to tell you what the issue is. Right?
Okay.
The issue is that next week is Big Daddy Matt's birthday.
Oh boy! Wait, on the Monday?
It's on Tuesday, actually. When you
it doesn't count.
Yeah, so it's ignoramuses.
Like all together, non-Monday birthdays.
Just
screw 'em.
Toss it out the pooper. I have a couple of things that are sitting in the hopper, but I don't have anything in particular. However, we did talk about kind of pseudo continuing this, even though it wasn't ever necessarily part of the wieners. I don't know if you still want to do the haunting. We can. Do you but you had something else I thought that you were.
Yeah, well, so you're going in a completely different direction. I thought I am up for anything. Again,
Sure.
You being the patron saint of wieners, you get final say.
Finally, I get a great title.
But I knew we wanted to do TVVB.
Oh, right. That's what we're doing.
But also coming up on at the end of the year, sometimes we take some time off. I think oftentimes we forget to take Christmas week off, but I guess it's not necessarily a requirement. So this is what we have looking at it ourselves then. We have The Haunting, we have TVVB, and we have our favorite 5 show, are kind of the things that... And I guess the favorite 5 could take place in January of the next year. So maybe... I don't know.
I want to do TVVB. Love it. Let's do that. However,
Okay.
I do have a movie that you are going to hilariously go.
He's making lots of faces.
You're not going to understand the why. I'm not sure I understand the why. I do understand the why.
He's backpedaling already.
It's a Christmas movie. It's a Christmas movie I've never seen because it is brand spanking new.
Christmas Chronicles 2?
It is not Christmas Chronicles 2.
Okay.
I like the main actress in it, the main actor, Jillian Bell. I like her a lot. I think she's really, really funny.
Still don't know.
And it also happens to have Isla Fisher in it.
Okay, I do know. Oh,
and it's on Disney Plus, and it's called Godmothered.
Godmothered, yeah. I couldn't have told you the title, but I think I did see that little image on Disney Plus whenever we booted it up.
The entire concept of this movie sounds like something I've probably seen before, and yet it looks just delightfully funny to me and relaxed.
Those are 2 strong leads, I'll give you that.
And June Squibb is in it, and I mean, give me all the June Squibb in the world. She's great.
So wait, you're throwing a wild card into here, like all those choices, and you're like, we also have this to think about?
I'm gonna watch it because I really want to watch it. I even told Beth, I was like, I want to watch this movie, and she looked at me like, the hell is wrong with you? And I was like, I love romantic comedies.
I heard the gore is good. It's a romantic comedy.
I don't think so. So here's
the romantic gore is.
Here's my understanding of this plot. And again, I think this has been done before, but Jillian Bell is a godmother who gets a letter from a little girl. And when she finally can respond to it, the little girl has grown up, is now a single mother, and has nothing going for her. And so it becomes I'm going to help you out.
Is Jillian Bell the
godmother, the fairy godmother?
That works.
And Isla Fisher is the single mom.
Who, speaking of which, I recognize Jillian Bell now that
Oh yeah.
She's been in. Oh, she's written and directed. Okay, I don't know if she's directed yet, but she's written more stuff than you know. If you don't know Jillian Bell like I did 2 minutes ago, but now recognize her.
My favorite thing she's done so far, to be honest with you, is she was in Workaholics, and she was so dumb and funny in that, and real good.
And it's not even the most recent thing I've seen of her. Remember her from 22 Jump Street might actually be.
I'm surprised you don't remember her from Bill and Ted Face the Music.
That's what it is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, she's done voices on lots of stuff too. So she's funny.
She's good. She's great. Yeah. No. Yeah. I don't blame you at all. But also, I feel like you're really filling up the plate here. Are you saying we don't take any time off at the end of the year here? I love that we're doing this on mic as always.
Well, we'll take the first week of January off.
Okay. All right. No, I'm cool with taking no time off. I just want to make sure.
No, we got to take the 28th, the week of the 28th off.
Okay, so the week after Christmas and New Year's, the week.
It's the week of New Year. It's the week of New Year's. New Year's is on like a Friday.
Christmas is a made-up holiday. This works out fine, anyways.
Now you're see, you're thinking, haha, offend the Christians, and I'm thinking, no, you're pissing off the pagans now. You've already taken it and gone and done your Gentile things with it, but now, like, you've gone.
All right, so come back for our own 8 crazy nights, or come back in 8 crazy nights. Is that how that works?
See, now.
Wait, are we doing 8 crazy nights now?
Now it's getting. No. Now you're getting all Jewy with me, and it's.
Hey, you first.
I've got my menorah set up. I'm ready to light, baby.
Oh, we got to get one of those. My kid loves. Okay, that's probably the wrong way to go about it.
Your kid loves Jews. My kid loves Jews.
He does.
It's great. I support. I'm gonna send him some gelt, and I'll send him some gelt. I'll send him a dreidel.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait. Okay, so I don't even know what we decided. So we're definitely doing TVVB next week, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm gonna give you this right now. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Oh man,
13.
This is gonna be bad. Okay, so I have a lot also. I don't know if I have 13. Oh, I guess I could count them because I do also.
And there are a few that I can definitely cut out, but
well, I figured those are the ones we throw into like the quick, like we're trying to, I don't know what we're doing volleyball wise, but we try to get it real quick.
4 of them are actually out because they were from last time.
That's up to you. That's your strategy. Which ones do you kind of toss out like it doesn't matter, but they do, but oh no.
Did we talk? We already did the talk about Stargirl, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I need that. So that's off. Okay.
Oh, you watched it again, didn't you?
No.
No? Oh.
No. I still have my list of the things that I did watch. So
I can't blame you. Yeah. Go watch Stargirl, everybody. Go listen to our show where we obviously watched it. No, I have one. Okay, no, I'm discounting those, even though we'll talk about it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And again, some of those are quickies. But okay, I'll have 9 by time we start. And we can tell everybody, because we've let this go ahead of time, the 2 biggest conversations I know are going to come from The Mandalorian, right?
Okay, so I have 9 now. I forgot about that one.
Great. And The Umbrella Academy. So
yeah, very likely. I've got a couple of things to say. Final thoughts on a couple of shows that I will never talk about again until you either decide to watch them or don't.
Yeah, I'll have some catch-ups too, but it sounds like you're going to have more than me either way.
Pretty good stuff.
All right, so come back for that next week, and then whatever else we decide to do the week after that.
Yeah,
so
it's all fluid, baby.
Podcast at Book Club for Movies again. That's what that is, and .com.
All right.
Or Facebook and Twitter is where we are. Thank you, everybody. Happy holidays.
War on Christmas. Bye.
Yeah. Is that what I did? Dang it.